Hey, Terry here. Just a heads up. Today's episode starts out sweet enough with the Beto Beto-san, but in the second part, when I retell the urban legend of the Teke Teke, it takes a turn. There's mention of suicide, plus Richard's immersive horror soundscape, which is always incredible and chilling. So it might not be for everyone. Hey, this is Thersa Matsura, and you're listening to Uncanny Japan. So why is it every time you're out walking alone in the foothills of Japan at night, you have the overwhelming feeling you're being followed? Not by something truly horrible, like a person, but something different, not of this world. Step, step, step. Beto, Beto, Beto. You turn around, but no one's there. You continue on. Step, step, step. Beto, Beto, Beto. You stop again, turn quicker this time. Still, no one, nothing. You speed up. It speeds up. You slow down. It slows down. All right, now you're really scared. What should you do? What if the sound isn't Beto, Beto, Beto? What if it's more of a Teke Teke Teke? I'm author Thersa Matsura, and this is Uncanny Japan, the podcast about yokai, folk tales, and curious cultural quirks. In today's episode, I'm going to tell you about the Beto Beto-san and the Teke Teke, two creatures who both get their kicks out of following you around, but with entirely different intentions. In case you missed it or momentarily forgot, or this is your first time listening to the show, my new book, The Book of Japanese Folklore, is out now. The hardback is really beautiful, but there's also the audio version read by me. And if you've already picked up one and would like to leave a review, that's also a huge help. Thank you so much. We've established that you're out alone at night, walking around. But what is that thing stalking you that is distinctly not human? Well, as long as the footsteps don't sound like Teke Teke, I'll get into that a bit later, you're probably safe. That is a Beto Beto-san galumphing behind you. Traditionally, there are two notable places for having a Beto Beto-san appear. The first is Nara Prefecture, Uragun, where they are said to frequent dark streets or footpaths at night. The other is Shizuoka Prefecture, where they show up when you're descending small mountains. But there's no need to worry. This yokai means no harm. It's actually kind of adorable. You see, if this does happen to you, and you are unnerved by the whole idea of being tracked by some otherworldly creature you can't see, there are two remedies. If you're in Nara, you simply move to the side of the path and say, Beto Beto-san, osaki ni okoshi. Beto Beto-san, please go ahead and pass. Or if you're in Shizuoka, osaki ni okoshi, or osaki ni douzo, meaning basically the same thing. After you. And the Beto Beto-san will disappear. Or sometimes it won't. It'll move on ahead and then say, if I go any farther, it'll be too dark and I can't walk. In that case, lend it your lantern and it'll be on its way. So what does a Beto Beto-san look like? Well, it didn't used to look like anything at all. It was just a creepy occurrence that happened. the sound of someone following you. Then along came Mizuki Shigeru of Gegege no Kitaro fame, who had experienced a Beto Beto-san as a child, by the way, but was too frightened to turn around and look back. Well, he decided to give this mysterious yokai a face, or a body, or, well, basically a large round thing with a giant smiling, toothy mouth and 2 legs. It is kind of creepy and kind of cute, and a lovely, relatively new addition to the yokai canon. And how about that cute name? What does Beto Beto-san mean? Let's work backwards. The san part, of course, is the honorific for addressing someone. More polite than chan or kun, but less polite than sama, or if you're watching Shogun, you'll hear a lot dono. Next you have beto beto. The onomatopoeia, beto beto, means sticky. If you're eating cotton candy with your fingers, beto beto. If you're kneading dough to make a pizza, beto beto. If you're stuck at a bus stop in the middle of August under the sweltering summer sun and covered in sweat, beto beto. At first I just assumed the beto beto came from the sound of sticky feet on the ground following you. But if you want to describe footsteps walking across damp ground, you'd probably say beta, beta, which actually sounds creepier to me. Then I looked more closely at Mizuki-sensei's depiction. His Beto Beto-san is wearing geta shoes, which are made of wood. It's pretty well known that when you walk around in geta, you make a karang koron sound. At the very least, more of a fricative onomatopoeia, not the b sound. Then I read that the name doesn't come from the sound of footsteps, but from the stickiness of the yokai following you. It's sticking to you as you walk. But even with that image in your head, this timid little creature is harmless. You will not be viciously slaughtered by a Beto Beto-san. If, however, you're walking alone at night in a more urban environment, and the sound you hear following you is Teke Teke, well then, you should be alarmed. You might as well make your peace with whatever god or gods or goddesses you believe in, because this creepy stalker is way messed up, and your time on Earth is probably very short at this point, and you're gonna die an excruciating death. The Teke Teke has so much written about it, and all of it is not that old. I'll try and cover the basics and make some sense of it. Just know that there are loads of variations, one more gruesome and awful than the next. Some detailing monstrous acts that happened during or after World War II, with the original person who turned into the Teke Teke being anything from a soldier to a postal worker to a young lady named Kashima-san, often Kashima Reiko. I kind of like how someone also connected Kashima-san to Kuretake Onna. Remember the woman with the mouth that opens from ear to ear? They say Kashima-san is the slit-mouthed woman's real name. Although we never hear anything about Kuretake Onna's feet or bottom half, and that is what Teke Teke is kind of all about. So maybe no. Since in the majority of the tales the Teke Teke is female, I'll call her a she. The gist, with nods to different variations, goes like this. It was a frigid winter night, way up in the northern country. I've read Hyogo Prefecture, or Hokkaido, and a woman, or junior or high school student, fell, or was pushed, or jumped herself in an attempt to take her own life, onto the train tracks. There was no one around to help. A train came and she was hit and cut completely in half. Miraculously, though, because of the extreme weather, the ends of all those pesky spurting blood vessels immediately froze, and she was saved. Well, for a bit anyway. She did end up dying. But before that happened, she had time to search for her missing lower half by using her arms or her elbows to scuttle around. That is where the Teke Teke name comes from. Pretty unnerving, huh? It's also the sound after her death, of her ghost desperately searching for her legs. Or if you're unlucky enough to run across her, it's the sound of her scrambling toward you at an ungodly speed. Imagine that happening late one night, all by yourself. You hear a sound. Rats in the garbage, maybe? You turn. There she is, running up behind you. There's another interpretation that says, after the tragic accident, some station worker, assuming she was dead, threw a blue tarp over her body to hide the scene. But she wasn't dead. She was still alive. Again, barely clinging to life. She did succumb to the trauma soon after, but not before she had time to grow furious at the callousness of that station attendant. With that emotion seething inside her, she died and became an angry ghost, or an onryo. Her goal in death then became to take revenge on all humanity, one person at a time, or something like that. She does this by hunting people down, which is easy when you can move at speeds up to 150 kilometers an hour. That's even more of a supernatural feat when you consider it's just her top half doing the chasing, and she has to rely on her two arms for mobility. Teke teke teke. Teke teke teke. The last sound you hear before she slices you in two. How does she slice you in half? Well, sometimes she's seen brandishing a scythe. But how does she carry a scythe when she's using her two arms to speed after her victim? Ha! Don't let a little thing like logic get in the way of a good urban legend. The tellers of this tale have made the appropriate adjustments. Sometimes she can fly. But if she can fly, why doesn't she just fly at me? Save the wear and tear on her limbs, and be much more stealthy. Certainly, she could kill a lot more people if she could just fly at them, swing her blade, and chop them in half. To which I'd answer, well, then her name wouldn't be Teke Teke, would it? Also, you lose the grotesque visual of a bloody torso scrambling after you at top speed. It's all good fun, right? But to me personally, just amping up the gross out factor doesn't make the story scarier. What does make it more chilling, though, is when I read about a connection to an old children's song. There's a very cute and bittersweet little nursery rhyme called Sachan. It's 3 verses, and it goes something like this. And no, I'm not going to sing. First verse. さっちゃんはね、幸子って言うんだ、本当はね。だけど、ちっちゃいから自分のことさっちゃんって呼ぶんだよ。おかしいな、さっちゃん。English. Sachan, you know, her real name is Sachiko, but because she's small, she calls herself Sachan. Isn't that funny, Sachan? Nice and safe. Second verse. さっちゃんはね、バナナが大好き、本当だよ。だけど、ちっちゃいからバナナを半分しか食べられないの。かわいそうね、さっちゃん。 English. Sa-chan, you know, it's true she really loves bananas, but because she's small, she can only eat half of one. Poor Sa-chan. Still safe. Third verse. Sa-chan がね、遠くへ行っちゃって、本当かな？だけど、ちっちゃいから僕のこと忘れてしまうだろう。寂しいな、Sa-chan. Sa-chan, you know, is going far away. Is that really true? But because she's small, she'll probably forget about me. How lonely, Sa-chan. It's such a lovely little story. But then along comes some genius, and I'm not being facetious here. Someone took this perfectly lovely little tune and added a dreadful fourth verse. Remember, 4 means she, or death in Japanese? This one goes, Sa-chan はね、電車で足をなくしたよ。だから、お前の足をもらいに行くよ。今晩だよ、Sa-chan. In English, Sa-chan, you know, lost her legs in a train accident. So she's coming to take your legs. Tonight, Sa-chan. Now that's nice and chilling, not perfect. It deviates from the previous 3 verses, losing the dakedo, chichai kara, but because she's small. I still think they could improve it. Because she's small, she can run after you very fast, or something like that. And the last one, maybe kowai yo, Sa-chan. I'm scared, Sa-chan. Anyway, one thing you'll find in the Teke Teke urban legend is if you just hear the story, then you'll be visited by her and ghastly things will happen. That's a much-used trope that is extremely effective, and it does a good job of instilling fear. It works in horror all the time. There's The Ring. There's ZUAN, The Grudge. Does anyone remember chain letters? If you get this letter, something bad will happen to you unless you copy it 10 times and give it to your friends and family. Don't worry. Having heard this episode and learned about the Teke Teke, you won't be visited by one. I promise. Well, unless you are. But then if your particular Teke Teke is worth their salt, we won't hear about it, will we? Here, let me give you a fighting chance, just in case. If you are confronted with a Teke Teke, yell, "Go to hell, jigoku ni ochiro," or "Go back to hell, jigoku ni kaere." That seems to work. You'll be spared. If, however, it's just a Beto Beto-san plodding along behind you, politely move aside and let it pass. Or, I don't know, maybe stroll along together so you're not so alone at night and you can have an interesting conversation. I'm sure it's got some stories to tell. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you all so much for listening. I will talk to you again in 2 weeks. Bye-bye. Uncanny Japan is free to listen to, but takes quite a bit of time to put together. There's also hosting fees and equipment costs. If you have the means and would like to support the show, you can do so over on Patreon. There I share exclusive content such as blog posts and the binaural soundscapes, recipes, and videos. Another great way to support the show is by subscribing, leaving a review, and picking up my new book, The Book of Japanese Folklore. And if you enjoy it, please consider leaving a review too. A big thank you to Julian for the intro and outro music, and to Richard for the audio editing, production, and all the website design and upkeep. And thank you for listening.